In our generation, we're seeing amazing new trends of moderate Muslims immigrating around the world. Radical Islam is spiking in different places, especially here in the Middle East. We're seeing clashes socially, politically, in many other ways, culturally as well, between Islam and Christianity and other religions and other peoples. There's so many things going on. How do we as believers and followers of Yeshua look at these things, learn from these things, and approach them with the right heart? Hi, my name is Cody Archer, and I'm so glad that you're joining me today for Revive Live. I have back with me again Bassem Adranly. Thank you again, Bassem, for being here with me. I had you recently, and we talked about a lot of these things about cultural, political clashes that are happening between Islam and Christianity. And today, I want to go deeper in that. You sparked a number of thoughts. You always have amazing insights into these things, and so I want us to dig a little bit deeper, especially on the social side of things. And but before we do that, I want to remind you that here at Revive Israel, we have a strategic giving fund. I invite you to sow into this. What we do with this money is we look for strategic places here in the body of Messiah in Israel that we can sow those finances into, whether it's single moms, whether it's outreach to different peoples, whether it's Arabic speakers, Hebrew speakers. We're trying to help students, believing students, grow and develop in their education in universities and colleges. We're looking for strategic people to sow into, and we want to invite you to join us in this. There's many opportunities, many ways to bless Israel, but we believe the best way to bless Israel is by sowing into the body of Messiah here in the land, and then through that, the blessing can go to the rest of the nation. So I want to encourage you, go to our website, reviveisrael.org, and you'll find information about our strategic giving fund and how you can be a blessing in a practical way to believers here in this land and many others as well. So we just say thank you in advance for partnering with us. And I want to encourage you as we're beginning this interview and this conversation today, would you go ahead and like it and share it? And I know this is going to be a thought-provoking conversation today, so thanks again for joining us. Well, Bassem, I want to just jump in today. You're an expert in this subject, and it's great to have you back. I want us to unpack more of the social side of things regarding this clash that we're seeing, not just in the West. I even think about Nigeria. There's a lot of clashes going on between Muslims and Christians. I'm thinking about Indonesia and the Philippines. It's literally happening all around the world in our generation right now, which didn't happen even 500 years ago. It was more in the Middle East and Europe, but now we're seeing this clash happening in different places all around the world. What is some of the things that we need to pay attention to regarding this clash socially?
Well, if I want to summarize the challenges, if you look at the book of the Quran, I would say there are 4 major challenges the West has to really look at and see how to deal with it. Number 1 is that it does teach a lot of negative things against defined people groups. Christians and Jews, especially the Jews.
Wow.
And that's a problem. I'm not saying that it's addressing like defining many things about certain behaviors, let's say adulterers or liars, or no, people groups, and that's problematic.
So meaning in the Quran there's scriptures, verses singling out peoples in
like
a negative
Jews,
way, like Jews, okay.
Some of them Christians, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
In the Judeo-Christian world, where they speak of tolerance, I mean, for us as believers, tolerance is, sorry for the term, is garbage compared to love. You know?
Yes.
The word to tolerate someone is not a positive word in the English language.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a culture that includes others. So when you have a book that has these negative teachings against defined people groups, that's the first challenge.
Yes.
And of course, I will not try to suggest solutions, but I mean, they have to understand that this is a big challenge.
Yes.
A second challenge is what are called war verses. like in Surah At-Tawbah. I don't know the surahs in numbers. We learn them in word, the name of the. So I know many Muslim apologists interpret it differently. They said that the wars are over, jihad is over, whatever you think of this. But obviously that after 36,000 cases of terrorism since the last 17 years,
Wow.
obviously many people, let's say, understand these verses. Let's say.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to enter into discussions. So practice counts. You know, theories doesn't work. The practice sometimes overpower the theories.
Right.
Sometimes they do. Someone told me he works as an architect of streets. He says sometimes in certain crossroad you follow the same you know, standards. You find that on this crossroad every week there are 1 or 2 accidents. On this crossroad, no accidents. They're exactly the same. When you see this happening in that crossroad, all these accidents, you have to do something.
Yes.
You have to add a traffic light. You have to
More science.
because practice is more just more authoritative than theories.
Yeah.
So practice tells us that people are looking at these verses and they understanding that they need to go kill people.
Yeah. They're acting out on them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that all these theological discussions doesn't count, you know, because experience speaks better than theories. Now, this needs to be taken into consideration. The fourth thing I see,
What was the third thing? We said hate or hating
2
specific
things
people groups.
I said about hate towards defined people groups.
Defined people groups.
War
War verses in the Quran.
Yeah. And the third thing is woman. You know, to allow the husband to beat his woman or to marry more than one woman. So, and it happens in Europe, you know. They just, by law, the other woman will be married by a Sharia marriage. And on the in front of the European government, it will be his mistress. But her children can be registered on his name, and they have full rights. So it's still practiced, you know. So this is another issue of, you know, I know there are many cultural issues. Sometimes people discuss about, in Islam the woman has half the share of inheritance than man. This is not the issue. The issue, the fundamental question is woman have the same value and rights before God as man? This is the fundamental question.
Yes.
And if you teach that they don't have the same value, even Jesus taught us that in heaven there is no gender. You know? There is no gender in heaven. One level. So if the religion is teaching, you know, man has more even credits in heaven than woman, and so on and so forth, I don't want to get into details, then that also clashes with the Judeo-Christian culture.
Even to the point, if you're born a woman, you automatically feel disqualified or less than, and you struggle with a lot of internal issues of, why did God make me a woman?
Yeah, some they argue, no, in Christianity is the same. So many of the issues are cultural, which is not. The Bible talks about different roles between the man and the woman, but the Bible teaches that the both are the same, have the same value.
Yes.
God created man on His image. And the image of God, He created them. Man and male and female, He created them according to the image of God. So, and also that Adam is, He created Adam kinegdo, like like
and
opposite
against
to
him, or opposite, yes, to help him.
So So this is the other issue.
When we talk about, just to clarify, when we also talk about women, does this include polygamy today and a man having multiple wives? Does that also fall into that category for you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is allowed in certain sects of Islam, or how does that work exactly?
It's allowed in the four major schools of
Islam.
the Sunni Islam.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Even also in Shiite Islam.
Mm.
So that's it will always clash with the Western societies and
Yes.
values. Also, there are many major issues like oppression. You know, trying to force people to do things, whether to wear the veil or not to wear the veil.
Yeah.
Both. In European values, people should really do what they want to do, what they feel want to do, according to the law, of course.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. The fourth thing is something that I mentioned last time. It's al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy an munkar. As a Muslim, if you want to follow the Quran, you have to order people not to do wrong. So if you see people in the street wearing, let's say, a woman wearing half a shirt, you are ordered to tell her, don't wear this, for example.
And even use force if you need to.
Now, some teach that you have to correct things by your hand, if you can.
Wow.
And that's a very, wide, undefined thing that could lead to disasters, really.
I even think about even homosexuals being found out in Iran, for example, and they go and beat them in the city square in front of everyone and publicly humiliate them.
Yeah, and according to what we learn from Jesus, for example, how he dealt with the adulterous woman in John chapter 8, he accepted her as a human being. But he spoke against, he said,
sin.
Do not sin anymore.
Yes.
But so we learn from him to differentiate between the human and his behavior. We accept everyone. Homosexuals, adulterers, we accept them, but we tell them that this is wrong. Now the West went all the way extreme that you cannot tell someone that this is wrong.
That's true.
But that's also, I believe it's wrong.
Yeah. Now, can I just jump ahead? You, as an Arab Christian living in Jerusalem, what do you personally feel or experience with some of these clashes? You know, what do these clashes look like for you in your personal life?
You know, this is the issue. After I lived all my life, I love my Muslim friends. It was a periods of my life that I slept in their houses, ate their mother's beautiful food more than my own. So I love them, and with the time, you know, we created the East, because of the Muslim majority also, there is harmony in everyday's life. And that's why I believe that it is wrong to think that the West can bring changes to the Islamic religion. They have to urge the Islamic world and help them to do that, because they are suffering from it as well. There is not one single almost majority Muslim country in the world that doesn't have internal fights between Muslims themselves. So they themselves are suffering from that problem, and the best thing is to let them deal with it. And that, I believe, is the best methodology, and that the West doesn't understand. America goes to Iraq, I want to do the democracy in Iraq. Democracy has to grow up from within, naturally. You know? You can help cultivate it, but it has to grow up naturally from within the culture.
Would you say then this is primarily coming from the idea in Islam that they need, or almost commanded by Allah, to be the most dominant religion in the world and just kind of rule and take over? And so no matter what the West does or whoever, there's just something that comes up from within the teachings of Islam that say, You can sell us what you want, but in the end, we're going to end up ruling the earth.
Well, that also have controversy over it, but certainly you have this very strong trend of thinking that, in our understanding, cultures compete. They don't fight.
Yeah.
Cultures do compete with each other. Israel send a rocket to the moon. They compete.
Yeah.
Cultures compete with each other. Yes, I want to be better than my Muslim friends. I want to be more successful, but I don't fight his religions. He shouldn't fight my religion. Religion should be something spiritual that dominates my personal relationship with God. And that way of thinking does exist in Islam. But it needs, as I said, you need to help the Islamic world really deal with that, because it is a struggle. The Islamic world is passing through great tribulation to rediscover what is Islam. And Islam is a very complicated religion, I tell you. The texts and the texts are undefined. That's what makes it so difficult.
Yes.
You have the Quran, but for the Sunnah, it's not the only holy book. You have also the Hadith that has also controversy since the last 1200 years. Al-Abadi, they don't believe in 2/3 of it, and many don't believe in many of it, and the Shia don't believe in any of it.
Wow.
And Al-Qur'aniyin, a new sect that founded 50 years ago, they don't believe in any of the Hadith. And it's huge.
Wow.
So you're talking about, let's say 90% of the religious texts have controversy upon them.
Yeah.
So it's very confusing, So the Islamic world is passing through this laboring, I think the West is the best thing that the West can do is to help them go through it.
Yeah.
Because after all, we want people to have freedom to choose.
Yeah.
If you are a Christian, you want to choose Islam, that's your God-given right, freedom of choice. God created Adam.
Yeah.
God himself did not impose himself to Adam. He told him, anytime you want to reject me, you have a door through the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah.
You can use that. So God created Adam, and he created the possibility to Adam to reject God. It's a very fundamental thing in life. We have to fight in order to make it possible to every Muslim and every Buddhist and everyone in the state like that you rule.
Yeah. Wow, very interesting. Well, we're almost coming to the end of our time. I do want to ask you one other question about ISIS. Where do you see ISIS going into the future? Is it going to continue to be strengthened and grow? Is it just so much internal conflict and it's going to fall? What do you see happening with ISIS?
I think it will go away. Because, after the 6-day war and when the Arabs lost, the whole project of Arab nationalism movement, people thought it died. And now the Islamic political Islam started to come in to fill the gap. And every time we say, did it reach the peak? Because I know when it reaches the peak and it doesn't achieve anything, it will go down. And every time I would discover, no, it's not the peak yet, there is worse than that or more than that. So I don't think that the ISIS example, there is worse than this. But I believe it has to go down because people eventually will understand it.
Yeah,
they're not
bankrupt.
Achieving anything.
It's cruel,
it's bankrupt. Even on the only thing remained in the Islamic world, in their imagination, is manners. And there it's going down the drain so rapidly. In Jarit al-Watan, Saudi Arabia, the ratio of rape among children is 23% in Saudi Arabia.
Wow. The home of Islam, the
Yes,
birthplace.
the birthplace of Islam, and it's statistics that one of the and it's the reported cases. So I mean,
Wow.
it's nothing
Horrible.
left.
Yeah.
And people will eventually acknowledge that. They say that Islam is the solution, and they need to discover, is it or is it not? I believe, is it not? It's not. And people will discover that. And then it has to go down. There's no more that they can do.
Yeah, well, amen. Bassem, thank you so much again for being with me today and sharing your insights with us. We really appreciate. I also learn from you every time that I'm with you, so thank you so much.
But just to clarify a thing, I didn't mean to go down like a religion, like to disappear. Like people will acknowledge, okay, it's a personal relationship with God, not anymore. So that's anyway. Yes, thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, we'll have you back again. And guys, I want to say thank you to you as well for joining us for today's Revive Live. I trust that this was a blessing to you, that you learned new things. And really, for those of us that came from the West, or really, it doesn't matter where you're at, we can always grow and learn more things. And the Lord is calling us to reach out with Yeshua's love into the Islamic world. We're not to be afraid. We're not to bury our heads in the sand, but we're to be a light and a witness and love and honor them and share the good news with them. And so we have an awesome privilege to do that. And I bless you to go and do that. And I will see you next week on Revive Live. And I look forward to it already. See you soon.